If you're trying to conceive and feeling overwhelmed with fertility advice, then this podcast is for you. Welcome to Don't Tell Me to Relax, your fertility podcast and antidote to unhelpful fertility information. I'm Hannah, a fertility acupuncturist, teacher and campaigner for better fertility education. This podcast aims to empower and inform you about your menstrual cycle and fertility. It's basically all that information you didn't get in sex ed at school, with the aim of improving your understanding of your reproductive health and optimizing your fertility. Good morning, lovely, lovely people. I am up with the lark on a Monday morning, 7:30, because I'm very excited. We have Ceci Jeffries from Fertility Collective with us all the way live and direct from Australia. Hi, Ceci.
Hi, Hannah. Thank you so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. So I imagine that most people who listen to this podcast will know who you are because you are quite famous in the world of fertility and fertility support. So I don't think you need an introduction, but in case there's anybody out there who doesn't know who you are, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you came to be in this space?
Sure. Thanks, Hannah. No, my name's Ceci, like you said, and I have a business and a community platform called Fertility Collective. And it all started really when my husband and I were hit over the head with an infertility diagnosis. And from that day onwards, how it impacted my mental health and how difficult it was to find support. And now given 1 in 6 people are affected by infertility, and, at the time I just felt like 1 in 6 million. So I started Fertility Collective really to shine a light on something that just does not get enough attention, because I just don't want people to feel as alone as I did. And, everyone's journey is very different, but the focus is largely still on the physical side, what the egg is doing, what the sperm's doing, what the uterus is doing. And there's very little focus on your emotional well-being and the mental toll. And people, I'm still finding, are largely doing it alone in a silent environment, which has really broad knock-on effects to their mental health, obviously, and how they perform in their workplace and, with their family and their relationship with their partner, their friends, and just everything. So, I started Fertility Collective membership so people know that they're not alone in their struggle, and it's somewhere where their feelings, even the ugliest feelings of all, can be validated by people who get it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? That it seeps into every single aspect of your life. There's nothing that fertility and fertility issues doesn't touch. Every single relationship, decisions, it's overwhelming. So can you tell us what is fertility coaching and what kind of support does that offer and what does the community offer?
Yeah, so let me start by saying, which you'll agree with, I'm sure, but a fertility diagnosis is not caused by stress, but a fertility struggle causes a huge amount of stress. So as a fertility coach, we need to manage that stress so our whole world doesn't completely fall apart around us as we're trying to have a baby. Because what happens is we have no control, and when we have no control, our confidence gets completely flipped on its head. So we can't control what the egg's doing. Like I said, we can't control what the sperm is doing. We can't control anything, inside our uterus, but we can control what we fill our minds with and how we start our days and how we finish our days and the questions we ask our doctor and how we navigate social events. So there is a lot we can control. So my coaching and my membership really focuses on all the things we can control in order to build up our emotional threshold and actually be able to still live as we're trying to have a baby, and also feeling supported. So when we do have another negative pregnancy test or a shit result or a major setback, we have the support there ready to go. And, I will say fertility coaching complements medical treatment. So, I am completely separate from all, medical doctors and the likes, because I really need to be. I need to be able to help people advocate for themselves with their current doctor and point them in the direction of a second, third or fourth opinion if when they're needed, and really arm them with the questions for their medical team. And so really as a fertility coach, I'm that girl in your corner, batting for you, and also looking at everything else in your life at the same time. And I now have an independent fertility nurse as well, who has joined Fertility Collective, who's offering independent nurse consults. What does that result mean? What should I do now? And really supporting my members in that way, which is really, it's everything I wish I had when I was deep, dark in the fertility trenches.
Yeah, that's so good. And is the coaching, is it group coaching or one-to-one, or is it both?
It's one-to-one. Yeah, it's
Okay.
one-to-one. I've got the membership where, there's obviously a lot of all members supporting members and the nurse as well. But then I do the one-to-one coaching, which really just, it's that 1 hour of self-care, where we can just focus 1 hour on you and your fertility situation, which, when you're struggling to have a baby and you don't really have anyone who understands and gets it, it's really powerful.
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it? And it's, we see it so much in our clinics, because obviously we work one-to-one with people when they come in for acupuncture or they come in for reflexology. And it's that hour of time where you are there to kind of support that person and care for them and, deal with stress. I guess we deal with stress by using needles and, or using reflexology, but it's about for that person, it's about having that escape to sort of offload and just get that support that is really needed.
Absolutely.
So why do you think infertility affects mental health so much?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I never knew how much infertility would affect my mental health. I mean, for me, it ended up in, full-blown anxiety, panic attacks. It got really, really bad for me when we were, right in the deepest part of our fertility trenches before we, even found a doctor that would take us, to eventually have a baby. But I think back to your, for everyone else, I think our pain is hidden, and we're overwhelmed by the uncertainty about if we will ever become a mum. And we often feel so disconnected from our friends and family. We are in that age group where, we can't really escape it. So that, the age we're in when we're trying to have a baby, we are also, that's our peer group too, who, so there are triggers everywhere. Particularly on Instagram, you might search, early, when can you test, early pregnancy symptoms, and then suddenly the algorithm shoots everything at us regardless, for the next 6 months, so there are triggers everywhere. I also feel, we're grieving the life we thought we had. We didn't know about infertility in school. We just thought we'd get married or not get married or whatever and choose how many children we'd have and when we'd have them, like so many people get to do. Fertility is just so unfair. Some people are fertile and some people aren't, and there's nothing anyone did or said or didn't do or thought that caused, them not to be at the time. And so the closest people to us don't really understand that, which is why I think it impacts our mental health so much as well. And, like we touched on earlier, it takes over our whole entire life, from work to social events to weddings to, family functions to, our relationship with our partner is huge. And, there's just that constant fear and anxiety about the future because we have no control. And, so I also, with my, one-to-one coaching, I see so much self-blame as well, which makes me, so sad because, there shouldn't be any self-blame at all because it's nothing anyone did. But I do, I do see it. So, I think, in terms of your mental health, people don't know how to support you, so they often don't. So therefore you do feel quite alone. So, I could talk for an hour about how much it impacts your mental health.
But I think it's that thing, isn't it? The unfairness and the injustice of fertility, that we have lots of people doing everything within their power of, not drinking their coffee, doing all the right things and still struggling. And yet their mate who's, just had 10 pints and maybe smokes fags here and there, got pregnant by accident. you know, it's like, it isn't fair, is it? Because it's not like everything else in life where you do this, you work hard, you know, you put all your numbers together and it all lines up nicely into the result that you wanted. And I think fertility might be one of the only areas in life where it certainly feels like that to me, where it doesn't work like that. And how you sit with that is a very, very difficult thing.
And you took the words right out of my mouth. That's exactly right. It's just the unfairness of it all, you know. And when you are, you know, we are in that age group where, you know, we're struggling, and then everyone else around us seems to be, you know, having children easily. And, you know, and they're, yeah, like you said, they're the ones, you know, you're not even trying. And it's that, you know, and I make a huge point of this on my Instagram page, you know, just, it's okay to feel jealous of the girl that didn't have to try so hard, you know, and it, you know, because that, it's like that perceived injustice, you know, it's just why, you know, that's all it is. Why?
Yeah.
It's fertility is really unfair.
Yeah. And human beings naturally like certainty and explanation, don't we? It's like, it makes us feel safe. It makes us feel secure. So when we can't explain things, or when things don't make sense, it's like the rug has been pulled from beneath your feet. And it's like, it then makes you question all areas of life when this doesn't make sense anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah. The grief, you know, the real, it's, you know, grief isn't just a death, you know, it's the loss, and it's, you know, the loss of the life we had planned, and it's a loss of being able to, you know, in a lot of cases, have a baby the old-fashioned way, like we always thought we had. I mean, the grief I felt when I was told by my fourth doctor that the only way we'd conceive is through IVF was probably, that was actually the hardest part of all of it, is, you know, something I'd never, ever, ever considered, thought about, and, you know, that took a really long time to get my head around.
Did you have any support when you were going through it? Did you have any friends, or was there anybody?
No. And in hindsight, that's really why I set up Fertility Collective, because there was nothing. And this was probably, what is it, going on 7 years ago, you know, so Instagram, you know, wasn't really a thing. You know, there's obviously a lot more now in terms of people talking about it. But I wanted somewhere I could go anonymously at the time, because I had so much fear and anxiety. My anxiety was completely took over my whole body. So I, you know, until I learned how to get on top of that, which is now what I teach, it was really bad. So, you know, I just wanted that place I could go and talk to people who are in similar boats. I mean, like I said, infertility impacts 1 in 6, but honestly, most people do feel that 1 in 6 million still. You know, you're sitting around a boardroom at work, and there's probably 2 other people in the room who also have had a struggle, or have had a miscarriage, or have had, you know, it not come so easily. But we just don't talk about it, because there is, okay, hats off to people who do talk about it openly. That's incredible. But it is also incredible if you want to keep it private. You deal with it how you want to deal with it. But people keep it quiet because there is so much at stake, you know. There's so much, you know, there are so many emotions at stake. You know, and then when you do open up, some people find that they are having to explain themselves to every, you know, Tom, Dick and Harry. I don't know if you have that saying in the UK, but every, you know, Auntie Mary and Uncle Frank, you know, how did that cycle go and how's it going? And, you know, and that adds, you know, that's a constant reminder of your struggle every time someone asks you. So it's really, you know, there is no right way to navigate, you know, this path. But I feel, you know, the Fertility Collective is somewhere you can go either anonymously or be open. You can have access to all the doctors and all the experts, and, you know, people like you who can answer all the questions, but also have, you know, a community of people, plus a whole, you know, a nurse where you can ask all your niggly nurse questions. You know, what does this result mean? How long should I wait after a laparoscopy to have this? And, you know, all that sort of stuff. But it's kind of, you know, it's obviously not the doctor side of it, not the sperm, not the egg, not the, you know, but it's kind of everything else, which is, it was a very, it was very obvious to me as soon as I went through this that this is what I wanted to do.
And how did you cope with your own anxiety then? How did you get through that?
Great question. Oh my God. I went on medication for around 6 months because that was, my panic attacks were, really taking a toll. They were, dictating my day, and I'd have to really plan my days around avoiding certain things, which would be, I'd have them in, like the Sydney Harbour Bridge tunnel, or, the a car park in the city, so somewhere where I couldn't really escape. That was my thing, or I couldn't, where I would get very panicky. And that all comes back to, when you look at it, all comes back to that complete uncertainty and fear about the future. And, it all makes sense when you look at it. But so initially that's what I did. Then I wanted to stop that. Went and did obviously talk to a psychologist. It took me a while to find. It's very hard to find a good psychologist. I think this whole world will agree. I think everyone who's had any mental health issues will agree it's hard to find a good one. And when you find a good one, it's like, yes. So I did, try a few, did find a good one. But then it did all come back to, me being able to have some control back, and me being able to, focus on what I could control. So I wasn't so focused on the fertility situation. So, I did, there's a whole lot of, things in my emotional toolbox, and I dug straight into that, and I still do. I do it, every day. There's a lot of things in my daily routine now which just really help me, keeps me, Sometimes when you feel yourself, bubbling up, okay, I need to just, get back into a bit more, but I have my daily routine now, which, it really helps, my anxiety.
And what kind of things, when you're coaching with people, what kind of things do you say to people to help? Because I guess the thing is there's loads of different things, aren't there? There's no there's no one thing for one person. But what kind of things do you suggest to people to help them manage their sort of anxiety, their stress levels as they're going through this?
Yeah, well, I will just say again for all the listeners, stress does not cause infertility, but infertility causes stress. So for me, I look at their whole life, and I look at their friends. So they look at their families, their relationships, their work, their physical health, and of course their mental health. And it's almost like going through and looking at a bit of a scale from 1 to 10 for each part. So we want to look at how the fertility situation is impacting their whole life at the moment, because then we can look at where the stress lies and where the stress is big, and we can put plans in place to address that stress using a whole range of, like you said, emotional support, emotional health techniques, which are obviously universal now, but really different support options for those different areas. And like you said, everyone is so different in terms of what stress they have and what will work for them. But again, it's really about I hate the word empowering, but I'm going to use the word empowering, but it is about empowering people with, education and resources, and, what questions to ask their doctor, and helping them put a plan in place, so if this cycle doesn't work, what is next? Because it's really helpful to know when you get that negative pregnancy test, okay, what's next? So just, it's, I'm wrapping your arms around them and just giving them as much support for the, because we can't control the egg and the sperm, and that's the frustrating thing. We don't know what's going to happen inside us, we might put a beautiful, beautiful embryo into a beautiful, beautiful uterus, and it doesn't work, and it's like, what? So it's about looking at our whole life, because that's really where so much stress lies. I mean, interestingly, with most of my one-to-one client, probably over 80%, I will say, friends is a real stressor. Friends and family cause a lot of stress in this situation, which is so sad, and it did for me. And the obviously pregnancy announcements navigating social events and all of that side of things with friends. But with family, you know, the generation above us often, well, they certainly didn't talk about fertility struggles, but, you know, they probably the ones, you know, they had babies a lot younger. There's a lot of reasons why, you know, it wasn't such an issue really then. But, you know, so they don't get it, and they want to help you, and they want to support you, and they love you, but they don't know how. So they say the wrong things. So, you know, I mean, it's which is why, again, Fertility Collective Instagram page, you know, and I love it when someone says, oh, I thank you so much for this post. I just forwarded it to my mum, you know, or I just forwarded it to my best friend or my boss, or, you know, because it's about learning what not to say, you know, and being able to, you know, people don't know how to support you, so they don't, then you feel more alone. So it's just, you know, it's education. It's awareness for everyone else as well.
Do you think that's changing? Do you think since you went through your fertility struggles, do you think that it's a different place now than it was then?
Definitely. I definitely do. But I still ask myself all the time, would I, given what we went through, would I openly share and ask for support when I didn't know how, if, when we would have a baby? You know, the fear is overwhelming. And I do see that every single day, how much fear there is for people. So, you know, when you are feeling so afraid about the future, and there's so much uncertainty about if you will ever become a mum, or if, for people who have had one child, if you will ever be able to give your child a sibling, you know, it is overwhelming. So I think we are talking more, and you know, and we're breaking the stigma and all that kind of stuff, and you know, there's much more awareness, but I do still think there is so much at stake, which is why, you know, again, Fertility Collective is just somewhere you can go quietly and have all your feelings validated, have the jealousy, have the fear, everything. Everyone gets it.
And what about the sort of relationship, if you have a partner, with the strain that happens between your partner as you go through this? Because that's, again, seems to be something that is huge, but often not discussed enough, like openly addressing or talking about, you know, the shit sex, the sex that you don't want to have if you're trying naturally, you know, all of those feelings around that, and kind of, I guess, also looking to each other for support when you're both struggling is also another thing that we see a lot, because it's very hard, isn't it? It's because it's the couple going through the issue. And so, you know, you would usually turn to each other for support, but actually when you're going through something like this, it can be quite difficult, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I always say, and for everyone listening, you know, it's likely that your relationship will change in some way during a fertility struggle. Most couples never need to address anywhere near these levels of difficult emotions. So, you know, for everyone listening, please know, don't worry if you and your partner are finding it tricky and you're not aligned at the moment, because, you know, a fertility struggle can completely take over your relationship and leave really little room for anything else. And it's really easy to lose sight of yourself and your relationship, you know, when you are navigating this, because obviously there's so much, there's this big black cloud. But, you know, it's really important. I mean, it's important to understand that each couple will handle stress levels very differently. So some couples draw a lot closer and face, you know, the fertility as a team, but others will find their struggle to sort of remain supportive of each other, you know, and this can be through grief and frustration and uncertainty, and sometimes it's just down to a lack of communication, but we can deal with it very differently, and that is totally okay, because we are all different humans. I mean, my husband and I dealt with our infertility so differently, you know, and we look back and we think, you know, I mean, again, it would have been much easier if, you know, we knew how important it was to, you know, have that communication and just really have that 10-minute check-in with each other every couple of days in the morning. You know, how are you? what are you worried about at the moment? How can I help support you? Just to like a 10-minute check-in with each other. I mean, we get so busy in our days. We wake up, we get dressed, we go to work, we're dealing with all the fertility stuff, and we don't, then we come home and we've got to, have sex then or whatever it is. But, actually just taking literally 3 minutes out of your day just to check in with each other is really important, because, fertility issues can be as stressful as a divorce or having a cancer in the family. So, you're going to go through some tough times, and you may not always have the same view of it all, particularly, how much money you want to put towards this, for example, or, with every negative pregnancy test as well and failed cycle or miscarriage, there's great sadness and grief together, which can happen in really different ways because we're all different human beings, So I remember, being upset with Tom because he wasn't so sad about this appointment, but then he was upset with me because I wasn't so sad about another appointment, and a discussion with the doctor. So, we are all different, and it happens at different paces, and I think even the most loving and committed relationships will experience some resentment inside this fertility struggle as well. And I think it's important to know that it is okay to feel resentment as a female about having to endure the physical side of things and being the physical body in all this, because your partner, doesn't have to do the needles, and I absolutely male factor, and there's a million male surgeries and procedures and things that have to happen, absolutely. But when it comes to IVF, it is a lot to do with the female body as well. And I think, I see sometimes a lot of resentment, when, someone might say, oh, look, I'm having to, get up and inject myself at this time and have the blood tests, have the scans and all that sort of stuff when, and maybe there's, not as, most partners are extremely understanding, but sometimes, they just need to take a supplement and that's all, and that even they might forget that, so things like that, which I know are very common relationship issues, but again, it just comes back to that communication, because most couples will find a fertility struggle actually brings them closer and makes them stronger than ever, which I can say, hand on heart now, Tom and I are completely unbreakable because of what the level of just difficult emotions that we had to deal with together, at the time. And I see it all the time now with my community, is that, it more often than not, this does bring you closer. So if you can get through this, you will almost certainly be able to get through any of other life's major hurdles as well. So just be kind to each other, just be kind to each other, give yourself time to adjust, schedule time with your partner, which I love this actually, is schedule time with your partner where you go out for dinner or a date and you don't talk about the fertility situation. You just don't mention it. Go back to what you were before when you were carefree and never thought any of this would happen. And then schedule time where you do talk about it, only. And just, make that effort to, connect with each other. And there's, like you said before, sex does become a chore. And it's really freaking annoying, let's be honest, when you're trying to have a baby and you have to have sex at this time, and then you put in all this effort, and then the next month it hasn't worked, and it's like, oh God, you just keep going lower and lower and lower each month. It's horrible. But find ways to connect with each other in to keep the intimacy alive, in other ways. So it's like a cuddle on the couch, or it's like a back tickle, or a foot massage, or just going for a walk and holding hands. And there is a lot of ways we can sort of keep the intimacy alive that's not sex. I think that's really, really important. And it's really easy to get caught up in our day-to-day activities, and I think when we really get to the heart of it, every man wants a cuddle and every girl wants a cuddle, so depending on who bears the brunt of the fertility issues as well, just the other person really being aware of that and acknowledging that, because I think it's that acknowledgement and that communication which is really, really key.
And if somebody's listening to this who maybe wants to support a family member or a friend going through fertility struggles, so it might be that they're not facing it themselves, but someone very close to them is, and they want to know what can they do, like how can they support them best, what would be your top tips for those people?
Oh, Hannah, I love that you've asked that, because there are so many people that, email me during the day and they're like, my best friend's going through this. How do I support them better? So because we don't know, like Ceci 10 years ago didn't know how to support her best friend that was struggling. We just do not know unless we've gone through it. So number one, it is forgive their absence, forgive them if they don't want to go to a birthday dinner, or they don't want to go to a girls' dinner, or they don't want to go to a baby shower. Just forgive them. Like, they will be back. If they need quiet time, that is totally okay. Don't take it personally. And also just check in and ask if they're okay. And this might just be, I put some example text messages up on my Fertility Collective page, which is, if you want to go for a walk and talk about your fertility situation, then I'm free. If you want to go for a walk and not talk about your fertility situation, then I'm also free. Just give them, if you want me to come around and let's have takeaway, and have 7 bottles of wine, then I'm here, or everything. Just know, for them to know you're there, and you don't, because we often don't know how to update people. We don't often know what's going to happen. We certainly don't know when we're going to get pregnant, if only. So, it's just sitting in the pain with them, and also, support their lifestyle choices. If they want to go and do hot yoga on their head and go and eat, I don't know, drink chili oil for a week afterwards, then just let them do it. We will try anything to have a baby and get pregnant. And so just don't be that friend that sort of criticizes their lifestyle choices. Just let them be, because we will try anything. And also just, put yourself in their shoes, if as much as you can, which I know is hard, but just be there for them. I think it's, as a friend, it's just knowing that there's no judgment, and just that you're there, when there is sad news, or you just want that friend to go and have a glass of wine with and talk about how shit the situation is, and how unfair it is.
Yeah, really, really good advice. And I think lots of people will find that really helpful, because it is about, so many people want to do something, but they don't know what to do. And then exactly like you say, so then they don't do anything. And that is the worst, I think.
Exactly. And just listen. Listening is great. Listening to them is great. No advice. Learn what not to say, on platforms like Fertility Collective, and you do it too. Like, learn what not to say. Just listen. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ceci. I'm going to put all the details. So if people want to, for the Fertility Collective, what do they do? Do they join? Do they sign up? I can put all the details on the show notes.
Yeah, thank you though. So you can find me on Instagram, Ceci_Fertility Collective, and on that page you also find my membership, where it's $19 US a month, and you get, like I said, you get your fertility nurse who's in there, honestly, like answering 20 questions a day for people, the niggling questions, and she's independent, which is amazing. And then also the community of people who are all in the same boat, plus Q&As with doctors where you can ask your questions via me. And so much, emotional, tools and mental health techniques, wellness techniques. So it's full of goodness.
Yeah. And there is something about the power of community that is often underrated. Even, you don't even need to be in a community literally, do you? Like the kind of, we've all learnt from COVID that, you can connect with people online, and it still be as powerful as if you were in person. So it is an amazing tool.
It is. I actually, interesting. I had some people who met through the membership in Sydney last week having lunch, and I was like, that's just, they met through the membership, and it was just, it's so incredible. It is. It's people, because, like-minded people who get it, people in the same boat. That's what we want.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time. It's so lovely to meet you, finally.
You too, Hannah.
And I'll put all the details on for everybody. So I really hope that you found this episode helpful. And thanks, Ceci, for coming on.
Thanks so much, Hannah, for having me.
If you've enjoyed listening to this and want to find out more, then come and join my free community in Facebook. We have loads of resources. You can catch up on all our previous webinars and be the first to know about forthcoming events. To sign up, just follow the link in the show notes. And if you'd like to work one-to-one with myself or one of the team, then please see our website, hannahpern.com, where you can book in directly or organise a discovery call to find out how we can support your fertility and your reproductive health.